The richest source of omega-3 fatty acids on Earth isn't salmon, it's not fish oil, it's not flaxseed, chia, or any pharmacy supplement. It's a plant whose seed oil is 64% omega-3 by weight, a plant that self-seeds so aggressively that a single planting feeds a family for generations, a plant that 500 million people consume every week across Asia, used as food, medicine, and lamp oil for centuries. In America, we spray it with herbicide and call it a weed. That's not an accident. On February 19, 1942, President Franklin Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066. In 6 days, 120,000 people received notices. They had less than a week to pack a lifetime into whatever they could carry. Farms valued at $72 million were sold for pennies or simply abandoned. The crops still in the ground were seized by strangers upon harvest. Among those farms were the household gardens of Japanese-American families who had grown this plant for 30 years on American soil, a plant their grandmothers had grown for food, medicine, and oil. When families returned home after the war, broken and starting from scratch, they didn't plant it again. The market was gone. Buyers didn't know what it was. The knowledge had been incarcerated along with the people who held it. Today, Americans spend $7.68 billion every year on omega-3 supplements. Most of that money buys fish oil. Meanwhile, this plant grows freely in nearly every climate zone, asks nothing in return, and outperforms every product in that multi-billion-dollar industry. We don't grow it, we don't eat it, we've been taught to kill it. The story starts in the mountains of southern China, sometime around 500 CE. A physician named Tao Hongjing compiled the supplemental records of renowned physicians, the most complete Chinese pharmacopoeia of its day. Among the herbs he documented is one called sisu, or purple reviver. He recorded it as a treatment for respiratory ailments, noting that it cleans the blood and calms the stomach. This plant had been grown across China for at least 400 years before he wrote his first line. It had already crossed the sea to Japan by the 7th century, where during the Edo period from 1603 to 1868, farmers grew it on 90% of all cultivated land. They used the leaves as medicine. They pressed the seeds for oil to light their homes before electricity existed. Japanese fishmongers layered its leaves under raw fish, not as decoration, but because the antibacterial compounds kept it from spoiling. Cooks understood this centuries before science confirmed it. In Japan, the word for this plant is shiso. In China, sisu. In Korea, cayenne. In India, perilla. 4 names for the exact same plant. In 1991, researchers at India's National Institute of Nutrition analyzed perilla seed oil. The findings quietly passed into a scientific journal and almost nowhere else. The alpha-linolenic acid concentration was 54 to 64%. That's the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids ever recorded in any plant species. It's higher than flaxseed, which the industry markets at premium prices. It's higher than chia and higher than any fish oil product on your pharmacy shelf. Perilla seed oil also possesses the highest ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids of any known seed oil at 6.1. That matters because the modern Western diet is closer to 15.1 in the wrong direction. Rich in omega-6 and poor in omega-3. This is a dangerous balance that researchers at Harvard Medical School have linked to increased inflammation and cardiovascular disease. The plant also contains rosmarinic acid. Perilla contains more than rosemary, more than basil, and more than oregano. In 2004, a clinical trial published in the Annals of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology showed Japanese researchers administering perilla extract to seasonal allergy patients. The treatment group reported 50% fewer symptoms stemming not from a drug, but from a plant. By 2017, Korean researchers documented perilla oil's omega-3 crossing the blood-brain barrier, protecting neurons from oxidative stress. In 2024, a team studying Parkinson's disease found cold-pressed perilla increased beneficial gut microbiota via the gut-brain axis, one of the most promising frontiers of modern neuroscience. The plant had been quietly doing this for a millennium, while Western medicine looked the other way. These studies came from government research centers and Asian medical hospitals. They were in journals published in languages that major Western databases consistently under-indexed until the early 2000s. This created an ancient archive of clinical knowledge, effectively invisible to doctors prescribing fish oil capsules every morning. So, Who decided which nutrients were worth researching? In 1971, an Inuit study in Greenland showed populations consuming enormous amounts of fat had dramatically lower rates of cardiovascular disease. Researchers identified omega-3 as the protective mechanism. Fish consumption was the explanation. Fish oil was the answer. By 1980, an industry was born. Today, fish oil dominates 61% of the global omega-3 market share. Processing, extraction, encapsulation, and cold chain shipping. Each step creates a barrier to entry. Each barrier protects a profit margin. PubMed lists over 15,000 studies on fish oil and omega-3. If you search for perilla oil, you'll find only 400. This is not because fish oil works better. It's because fish oil has funding. Perilla can't be patented. Its seeds can't be sterilized. Its oil can't be extracted with proprietary technology that generates licensing revenue. A family can press perilla seeds with a hand tool bought for less than $100 and produce a year's supply of omega-3 oil in a single afternoon. That arithmetic is why the research doesn't exist. The suppression of perilla in America wasn't just a matter of research funding, it was something more direct. In the 1930s, Japanese-American farming families across California's Central Valley had quietly become the most productive agricultural force on the West Coast. They produced 40% of California's commercial vegetables. Per acre, their farms were worth $279 compared to a state average of $37. They transformed marginal land into America's most productive farms. Among those farms were household gardens where perilla grew. Seeds were saved each fall. Oil was pressed in winter. Leaves were eaten fresh throughout the summer. This was an ancestral practice quietly maintained in a new country. Then Pearl Harbor happened. Hours after the attack, Austin Anson, administrative secretary of the Salinas Vegetable Growers Shipper Association, boarded a train for Washington. He had been lobbying for the expulsion of Japanese-American farmers since the 1920s. Now he had a receptive audience. He told the Saturday Evening Post in May of 1942 that the real question was whether white farmers would live on the Pacific Coast or the Japanese. Decades of organized corporate lobbying had finally found its political moment. When Executive Order 9066 was signed, the War Relocation Authority oversaw the transfer of 120,000 people to concentration camps. By the end of the year, the administrative secretary of the Western Growers Protective Association reported the expulsion had resulted in considerable profits for white growers. The farms that had been seized through lobbying were acquired by the very organizations that had demanded the evacuation. By 1960, the number of Japanese-American farmers had fallen to a quarter of their pre-war presence. The knowledge they carried did not return with them. Rebuilding a generation's farming practice was not possible. Many moved to cities. Perilla gardens did not return, but the plant kept growing. It escaped cultivation and spread into the ditches and disturbed soil across the eastern United States. It now appears in agricultural extension newsletters as an invasive weed. In America's backyard, an ancient food and medicine tradition was reclassified as a nuisance. Herbicide companies now sell products specifically formulated to kill it. Yet 500 million people still eat perilla every week across Asia. They wrap it in grilled meat. They pickle it with garlic and soy. They press the seeds for oil. They haven't forgotten. A 100-gram serving of fresh perilla leaves provides 3.90 of protein, more than spinach or kale. It provides 230 of calcium, 1.7 milliliters of iron, and 5520 international units of vitamin A. The seeds are the real infrastructure. They contain 35 to 45% oil by weight, with 54 to 64% of that oil being the same omega-3 fatty acid the supplement industry sells you in gel caps for dollars a bottle. The plant grows in USDA zones 2 through 11, covering virtually the entire continental United States. It thrives in poor soil and tolerates drought. It self-seeds with a ferocity that's closer to resilience than gardening. A single plant produces 1,000 to 4,000 seeds, and 85% of those seeds germinate. They remain viable in the soil for 5 years or more. Korean farming villages have documented the same perilla plots, growing in the same ground for 10 generations without replanting. A decision from one ancestor feeds descendants for centuries. To grow it now, soak the seeds in water for 24 hours before planting. Sow them directly on the soil surface or in any container with basic potting mix. They need light to germinate, so don't bury them. Seedlings emerge in 7 to 21 days. After the first month, the plant adapts to local rainfall and needs almost no further attention. Harvest leaves throughout the summer, eat them raw, wrap them in grilled meat, as 500 million people in Korea and Japan do every week. Add them to soups or dry them for winter tea. At the end of the season, let some plants flower. The seed heads will shatter and self-seed. What you'll have isn't a garden plant. You'll have a permanent food system that returns every spring without asking. For oil, let the seed heads fully ripen in the fall, dry them completely, and then cold press them using any hand press. The golden oil stores for up to 12 months in a dark glass container. The leftover seed cake feeds chickens or goes to compost. Nothing is wasted. This is the omega-3 supply the supplement industry spent 50 years making sure you never thought to grow. The Japanese-American families who kept perilla alive in California didn't lose it because the plant failed. They lost it because they were driven off their land by an executive order, driven by corporate interests who wanted their farms. Corporate associations got the land. America lost the knowledge, but they couldn't imprison the seeds. The plant escaped into road ditches and spread across 20 states waiting to be recognized. It has been recognized by half the world's population for 100 years. The knowledge isn't lost, it's growing in your driveway. It's in every package of shiso seeds from any Asian grocery store. It's in every community that held on to what was taken from them. If this story has changed how you look at the weeds in your garden, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We are unearthing history in the natural treasures they've tried to hide in plain sight. Help us grow this community by liking and sharing this video. Let's plant the seeds for a healthier future together. The next archive opens soon.